Good evening, students. Welcome to a very important session on SBI PO interviews. स्वागत है आप सभी का. Can you hear me? Can you see me clearly? Okay. Good evening. Say something in the comment section. I hope the audio, video are clear. I'm Abhishek Gaike. I welcome you to this session. We're going to guide you, or rather, I'm going to guide you for the SBI PO interview process. That's my introduction on the screen. My name is Abhishek Gaike. I have a BE in Computer Science and Engineering, a PGDB in Banking. I used to work in the Global Markets Group in ICICI Bank at its head office in Bandra Kurla Complex. In foreign exchange, I was selected as an SBI PO, as an SBH PO, which was an associate bank of SBI, then Bank of Baroda PO, Punjab National Bank, LIC, National Insurance, etc. I was selected in the Reserve Bank of India with an All India rank of 6. I cleared SSC CGL with an All India rank of 49, and I have more than 11 years of experience in bank and SSC exams coaching. So that's all about me. Let's start the session. I'm not feeling well. I had a bout of cold and cough last night, and even today I'm not very fit. That's why I preferred the online mode of coaching or interview guidance. So apologies to my students who couldn't meet me offline. I had promised that I'd meet a couple of them, or rather at least a dozen of them today, but I don't want to put your health at risk. So just as a precautionary measure, I'm staying at home and trying to communicate with most of my students through Zoom calls and WhatsApp video calls, etc. I'll try my best to guide you online in one-on-one sessions as well as these general sort of YouTube sessions. So anyway, these are the general instructions that you have to follow before you start the interview process. I mean, before you start the interview, first of all, ensure that you have all the relevant documents. This is very important, guys. If you have applied from the OBC, SC, ST categories, ensure that you have your proper caste certificate, central OBC for OBC category candidates. OBC certificates issued by state governments are not acceptable. SC, ST candidates, you can carry, say, state government or central government certificates. And you'll need an affidavit in case there are discrepancies. Discrepancies in your name, in some other details. So in case there are discrepancies, make sure that you carry an affidavit. I'll share the affidavit later. And fill the biodata form truthfully, honestly, and carefully. Your interview, for the most part, will be based on what you've entered written in the biodata form. You'll need to prepare your answers in both English and Hindi, except for the South Indian states. I think all across the country, the interview, it's quite possible that your interview would be bilingual. When I had appeared for the interview many years ago, it was trilingual. One of the panel members asked questions in Marathi. My mother tongue is Marathi. I had appeared for the interview in Mumbai, and most of the questions were in English or Hindi. So you need to be comfortable with both the languages, English and Hindi. If the panel members ask you questions in Hindi, you should try to answer in Hindi. If the question is in English, try to answer in English. I would highly recommend using English though, even though you have the option of using Hindi. Anyway, so and reach the interview venue on time. See, this is very important. For IBPS PO, usually the process is delayed. So if you've been given 8 a.m. on your interview call letter, you'll probably have your interview at 11 or 12. But as far as the SBI PO interview process is concerned, I appeared for the interview two times for SBI PO. And what I have noticed, and I also spoke to many students who had appeared for the interview process last year and the year before that, almost in every case, for every time slot, the process started on time, it ended on time. So if you're instructed to be there at 8 o'clock, make sure you're there at 8 o'clock. For IBPS PO, even if you're late by a few minutes, it's okay because usually the process is delayed. Anyway, so those are the general instructions. Now, as usual, I start with a sort of a broad classification of interview questions. Personal questions to start with, then banking, then general knowledge, and then finally academic. So personal questions, banking questions, general knowledge includes current affairs, and then academic questions, questions based on your academic qualifications. So, for example, if you're a computer engineer, you might be asked questions on network security, cryptocurrencies, database management, operating systems, etc. Technical questions, questions on something that you've studied in your 4 years of engineering. So, if you're a commerce graduate, you could be asked questions on accounting, some other concepts related to commerce and business and finance. So I'm not going to cover this part. Academic questions will vary based on your qualification. I'll majorly focus on the personal questions. So let's start the session. The personal questions. The most important, or rather, the first question in this category is tell me about yourself or introduce yourself. This is a very common question, sort of an icebreaker. You can. I'll give you an answer. I'll introduce myself. Good evening, sir. Good evening, ma'am. My name is Abhishek Gaike. I come from a small village called Dinwada in the Gangapur Taluka of Aurangabad district in Maharashtra. I completed my BE in Computer Science and Engineering from MIT College, Aurangabad. I'm very hardworking and disciplined. I enjoy traveling and listening to music in my free time. I want to become a successful officer in the State Bank of India. Because this is the SBI PO interview, you can use this last line. I want to become a successful officer in the State Bank of India. So depending on the interview, you can change the last line. So if you're appearing for the IBPS PO interview process, you can say, I want to become a successful officer in a nationalized bank. So don't start your introduction by saying myself. Myself is a reflexive pronoun and intensive pronoun. It's wrong to start the sentence using myself. I've heard many students say this, introduce themselves this way, myself XYZ. That's incorrect. You can say I am, but a rather polite way would be my name is. Uh, I seem to be getting an important call. Just hold. I'm sorry, guys. Really sorry. Back again. So, anyway, I was talking about this first question, this icebreaker. Tell me about yourself or introduce yourself. So, once again, I'll introduce myself. I'll break down the answer into different parts. I'll explain why I'm saying certain things. So, first of all, depending on who is in front of you, you wish them good evening, sir, or good afternoon, sir, depending on the time of the day. Good evening, sir. Good evening, ma'am. My name is not myself. My name is Abhishek Gaike. And if you come from a rural background, you can highlight it. It's always a plus point. If you reach this far, coming from a rural area, make sure that you highlight it. So, I come from a small village called Dinwada in the Gangapur Taluka of Aurangabad district in Maharashtra. I completed my BE in Computer Science and Engineering from MIT College, Aurangabad. That's it. I'm not mentioning the university or my percentage. If you have a PG degree, by all means, mention it. If you have work experience, you can, in one line, just talk about your work experience. So, I have been working as a senior software engineer in XYZ Technologies. Uh, I've been working as a senior software engineer in XYZ Technologies since 2019, for example, or since 2017. Then to qualities. I am very hardworking and disciplined. Then your hobbies. I enjoy reading and listening to music in my free time. And the last line. I want to become a successful manager or an officer in the State Bank of India. So I'll bring it all together and answer it now. So this would be an ideal, sort of an ideal answer. Uh, Good afternoon, sir. Good afternoon, ma'am. My name is Abhishek Gaike. I come from a small village called Dinwada in the Gangapur Taluka of Aurangabad district in Maharashtra. I completed my BE in Computer Science and Engineering from MIT College Aurangabad in 2017. For the last 4 years, I've been working as a software engineer in Island Software Systems in Aurangabad. I'm very hardworking and disciplined. I enjoy traveling and listening to music in my free time. I want to become a successful officer in the State Bank of India. That's it. I'm not talking about my family. Let's keep it for a different question. I mean, if you talk about your family in detail, then your introduction becomes too long. Ideally, you should separate these two answers. So when you're specifically asked about your family background, then you can talk about your family. No, Akshay, you don't need to wish everyone good morning and good afternoon. A collective good morning or good afternoon or good evening is sufficient. So let's say if there are four male members and one female member, you can say good afternoon, sirs, plural. Good afternoon, ma'am. That's it. Or good afternoon, ma'am. Good afternoon, sirs. And then you can start your answer. So, as far as the family background is concerned, I'll introduce myself, or rather, I'll talk about my family. My father is a farmer, my mother is a housewife. She helps my father in the farm. I have an elder brother who's currently unemployed. He also helps my father in the farm. I have a younger sister who's pursuing graduation in commerce. We own 2.5 acres of agricultural land. It's not irrigated. We grow cotton and soybean in it. That's it. So I'm just, this is an imaginary scenario. So if let's say I come from a rural background, my father is a farmer, this is how I'm going to introduce myself, or rather talk about my family. So I'll repeat the answer once again. My father is, I've heard many students say there are 5 members in my family, 6 members in my family. I don't think that's necessary to talk about the number of people in your family. You just talk about your family members and what they do. For example, I'll repeat the answer. My father is a farmer. My mother is a housewife. She helps my father in the farm. I have an elder brother who's currently unemployed. He also helps my father in the farm. I have a younger sister who's currently pursuing graduation in commerce. We own 2.5 acres of agricultural land. It is not irrigated. We grow cotton and soybean in it. That's it. Good one, Vedant. Good one. So, in case that question is asked, how long will you continue in SBI? You can say, for me, this is going to be a lifelong passion, a job that I'm going to retire after 30 years. So something like that. So on a lighter note, Vedant was selected last year as an SBI PO. So anyway, good to see you, Vedant. Uh, so if you're asked about your graduation, let me just clear the screen. So you graduated in 2017 or 18. You can say you've been preparing for bank exams if maybe the gap is 3 years max. But if you graduated in 17 or 16 or 15, say that you're doing something. You were working somewhere, maybe something you were doing something related to your graduation, or maybe you were teaching somewhere in a coaching class, something like that. So, if I'm asked this question, you graduated in 2017. What have you been doing? I did not graduate in 2017. Again, this is an imaginary scenario. I graduated in 2007. So, anyway, you graduated in 2017. What have you been doing for the last 4 years? So, after I completed my graduation, I started working in a small software company called Island Software Systems in Aurangabad. I worked there as a senior software engineer in Java and Python, for example. Just give your answer in 2 to 3 lines max. If you're asked in detail about it, then you can elaborate. But for this, you can just say you've been working in a software company or whatever you've been doing. Why do you want to join the banking sector, or why do you want to join SBI? These are related. If you're asked specifically about SBI, you can talk about banking in general and then say some good things about SBI. SBI is the largest bank in India. Uh, it is really the banker to every Indian. Working in SBI will give me a lot of status in society, something like that. So, in addition to the good things, you'll talk about the banking sector. So, I'll give you an ideal answer. Let's say if I'm asked, you're a computer engineer, why do you want to work in a bank? Or rather, why do you want to work in SBI? I'm just going through the questions. Sixth interview. Okay. Agri warrior, I don't think that's necessary. Don't mention it in your introduction. Pratik, if you've been preparing for other exams as well, ideally you shouldn't mention it. Say you were preparing for bank exams. Anyway, so why do you want to join the banking sector? So this is the ideal answer. There's no ideal answer as such, but this is good enough, right? So use it as a reference. So why do you want to join the banking sector? Banking is a booming sector. There are many opportunities available in this sector. If I'm selected as an officer in the State Bank of India, I will get a very good salary, facilities, and allowances. But most importantly, I will get social respect. Banking exams are easier as compared to other competitive exams like UPSC and MPSC. The recruitment process is quick and transparent and based purely on merit. Being a computer engineer, I am especially comfortable with subjects like quantitative aptitude, logical reasoning, and computer knowledge. That is why I decided to prepare for bank exams, especially SBI PO exam. So that's how you should answer it. These, I mean, use these answers as a guide. You don't need to memorize these answers. Uh, you can make changes, sort of customize these answers as per your requirements. Okay. So if you have any queries, you can write in the comments section. Else, we can move on to the next slide. This is going to be a short session. I'll spend more time answering your questions rather than just talking about what's given on the screen. So if you have any questions, please feel free to ask. Anyway, moving on. So we're discussing personal questions. There could be questions on banking awareness. There could be questions on current affairs and general knowledge. Right now, we're discussing personal questions. If you appeared for this recruitment process earlier, maybe you appeared for the interview last year or the year before that, and if you're asked about it, be honest, be frank. Yes, sir, I had appeared for this exam earlier, but I couldn't clear it. I couldn't clear the main exam, or I couldn't get a final selection, although I scored good marks in the interview. So anyway, how did you prepare for this exam or interview? Ideally, you shouldn't talk about any coaching class or any teacher. Always say that you prepared for this exam through the self-study route. That shows that you have natural talent. You prepared on your own. You watched a lot of videos on YouTube. You referred to books. You took some guidance from your friends or seniors who are now working as officers in public sector banks. So you took guidance from them, you referred to good books, you watched a lot of YouTube videos, and that's how you prepared. Especially for the interview, you can say you had a senior in college, you know a senior, or rather you had a senior in college who, after graduation, uh, joined Bank of Baroda or Punjab National Bank, and you took guidance from him or her, and that's how you prepared for the interview. And your senior told you to prepare for certain types of questions and told you to answer all questions honestly, truthfully, and that's what you're doing, which means indirectly what you're saying is all true, it's correct, you are being honest. So never say you took guidance from a teacher or you joined a coaching class, because that sort of gives the impression that whatever you're saying has been taught to you by someone. Maybe a teacher is coaching you. Your answers are not honest or genuine. Anyway, so why do you want to quit your current job and want to join a bank? You can talk about the good things, Atharv. You can talk about the good things in SBI. If you're specifically asking about SBI, then say good things about SBI. Say good things about the banking sector. Don't badmouth your previous employer or your current employer. Say it's a good job, it's a decent job, but it doesn't offer such bright opportunities that I wish to have. So I can say, let's say I'm working in a private company, in a software company. I can say it's a very good job. I've been fortunate to have a very good boss, a helpful mentor in him. I found a helpful mentor in him. I've got some great colleagues. But at the end of the day, this job doesn't offer me such bright opportunities as I wish to have. I want to grow professionally. The salary is a bit low, and I don't see a lot of growth in the next 5-10 years in my current job. On the other hand, as I said earlier, banking is a booming sector. There are many opportunities available in this sector. If I get selected as an SBI PO, I will get a very good salary, facilities, allowances, but most importantly, I will get social respect. So that's how you should approach these questions. Never badmouth your previous employers or your current employer. That gives the wrong impression. Every time I got an hour and progress. Agri Warrior, you can post your queries here. Just prepare well for this interview. 15 out of 20 is good. If you're referring to IBPS interviews, I'm assuming because your ID is Agri Warrior, you're going to appear for the AFO interview, right? So 15 out of 20 is a decent score. But if you're specifically targeting SBI PO interviews, then 15 out of 30 is not a very good score. So I'm discussing these questions. You can frame your own answers and then share your answers with me. Okay. Anyway, so questions regarding your job location. I've discussed these questions and the answers in another session for IBPS SO interviews and RRB PO interviews. But in any case, I'll repeat the answer in this session. So questions regarding job location. Are you ready to work in rural areas? Are you ready to work anywhere in the country? So the preferences that you gave have no impact whatsoever on your selection. Even if you're asked about your preferences, you can say they're just that, they're preferences. Even if you're not allotted your first, second, or third preference, even if you're allotted your last preference, you will still join the organization because right now you need a job. What's more important is getting into SBI. So I'll just give you again an ideal answer. I'm always doing this because, to be frank, there is no ideal answer as such. If you answer properly, if you give a very logical, coherent answer, it's acceptable. So I'm just giving one type of answer, one example. Okay. So are you willing to work anywhere in the country? You're from Aurangabad or Maharashtra, you come from a rural area. Are you ready to work in a city, etc.? So I'll say, are you willing to work anywhere in the country? Yes, of course, sir. India is such a diverse country with different cultures, customs, cuisines, traditions. I would love to experience the rich diversity that our country has to offer. I was born and brought up in Aurangabad. I spent the first 25 years of my life here. So if I'm given a chance, I would love to work in a different state, having a different culture where people speak a different language, because that way I'll grow not only professionally but also personally. I love traveling, meeting people from different backgrounds, interacting with them. In fact, that was one of the reasons why I chose banking as a career. So, of course, I'm willing to work anywhere in the country. So, I hope you've understood this. This is just one of the ideal answers. Pratik, yes, you can say, see, you're a mechanical engineer or you're a computer engineer. How will you use your knowledge in banking? Will it be useful? Yes, of course, the knowledge will be useful. Suppose I'm posted in the credit department. I will be better able to analyze the loan applications of manufacturing companies or SMEs. Small businesses apply for loans for purchasing machinery. As a mechanical engineer, I am in a much better position to analyze the technical aspects of the proposal, the engineering aspects, as compared to someone who doesn't have any background in engineering or specifically mechanical engineering. Well, to be very frank, you won't necessarily be placed in the credit department immediately. And more often than not, you'll first be posted in a branch. You'll try to you'll be trained on various aspects of banking. But because this is a common question, how will you use your graduation while working in the bank? You can give this answer. You can also say, besides, during my 4 years of graduation, I was very active in extracurricular, co-curricular activities. During this period, I improved my communication skills. I also developed leadership qualities. And I'm sure these skills or qualities will be useful not just in a bank, but in any organization that I'm a part of. So, okay, startup. Okay, certificate is not compulsory action. You can mention that you were working in a startup, in a private company, in a small company. That's all right. The work experience certificate is not compulsory. Being a graduate. Okay. Govind, I think you're talking about the AFO interview. So that's a completely different thing. I conducted a session for IBPS SO, specifically Agricultural Field Officer interviews, the other day, I think a couple of days ago. So you can refer to that video for detailed answers. This is more specifically about SBI PO. Anyway, so moving on, questions regarding job profile. Are you ready to do sales and marketing? For this was actually a question asked last year. Are you ready to do, not last year, in 2019? Are you ready to do sales and marketing? So you should say yes. You shouldn't pause. You shouldn't think. You should immediately say yes. But rather than just say yes, you can say, yes, of course, sir. Sales and marketing is an integral part of any business. In today's competitive environment, when even private sector banks are aggressively expanding in rural areas, it is essential for government banks to use innovative strategies for sales and marketing to attract new customers as well as retain the old ones. So, of course, I'm ready to do sales and marketing. In fact, I'm ready to do any kind of work that is given to me by my seniors and that is useful for the bank. So that sort of shows your readiness to work in a bank, to do all sorts of things. If you're asked, are you ready to go for loan recovery drives? Yes, of course. Not just yes, yes, of course, by all means, definitely. So you should sound very proactive, excited. Yes, of course, definitely. Why not? Sure. And then you can sort of elaborate. Yes, of course, I'm ready to do sales and marketing because It is an important and integral part of any business. Okay, IBPS PO interview, Govind. Okay. Uh, it's a very easy question. All nationalized banks focus on agriculture. It's one of the focus areas of government banks, part of the priority sector. So, being an agriculture graduate, I can use my knowledge of agriculture to help farmers, acquaint them with modern methods of agriculture, farming, advise them on certain productive techniques, and then you can give example for an example, or not just one example, multiple examples. For example, I know a lot about animal husbandry and dairy science. It was one of my favorite subjects. So for farmers who belong to areas where there is water scarcity, I would encourage them to supplement their farm income by through dairy, by purchasing goats or cows or buffaloes, whatever. I will also encourage them to get their soil tested and then cultivate crops accordingly, depending on the results of the soil test. 4 5 years gap after graduation affect negatively? Not necessarily, Pramod. If you can justify that period. So let's say you graduated in 2015. What have you been doing for the last 5 6 years? You can say, sir, after my graduation, for 6 months, I searched for a job. I completed my graduation from a small private engineering college. There were no campus placement opportunities available. So after graduation, I went to Pune. I searched for a job. Unfortunately, I couldn't find a decent job. That's why I came back to my hometown and started preparing for bank exams. However, because I come from a rural area, I studied in a Marathi medium school, I couldn't clear the English cutoff of many bank exams. But I did not give hope. I remained optimistic. I continued working hard, and ultimately, I cleared this SBI PO exam. If I become an officer in SBI, the wait would be well worth it, because working in SBI is like a dream come true, or working in SBI would be a dream come true. Pramod, I don't think you should mention UPSC, because it's not wrong to mention it, but you shouldn't complicate things, because then they would ask you about UPSC. Why did you leave your preparation? So banking was not your first choice. What if now you're selected as an IAS or IPS officer after you join SBI? Will you leave this job? So you can answer these questions satisfactorily, but then you'll have to work a bit more hard. You'll have to prepare your answers, ensure that you don't contradict yourself, you don't create that sort of doubt in their minds that you will probably you're preparing for these exams even now, and you will leave as soon as you clear the UPSC exam or the state civil services exam. Ideally, you should say you started preparing for bank exams right at the outset, right from the beginning. Anyway, any more questions, guys? Then tell me about your city, district, or taluka. You can talk about the tourist places. You can talk about the industrial development, the historical places, religious places, temples, dargahs, etc. Like, for example, Aurangabad is known as the tourism capital of Maharashtra. The UNESCO World Heritage Sites of Ellora and Ajanta are quite close to Aurangabad city. Aurangabad is also very close to Shirdi, where people visit to pay their respects to Sai Baba. Aurangabad is also rapidly developing industrial city. There are many automobile manufacturing companies here. There are many distilleries and breweries in Aurangabad. So anyway, you can talk about your city or district or taluka in detail. You might be asked the current MP, Member of Parliament, Mayor of your city, MP of your district, MLA of your taluka or region. So district collector, municipal commissioner. So be prepared for these questions. If you're from one place and you studied at some other place, make sure that you get all the information of the other place as well. So for example, if I'm from Aurangabad and I completed my graduation in Pune, then I need to get all information, not all, but the important information about Pune, Pune district, Pune city, etc. Yes, definitely, Pramod. That would be a good thing. Then many questions might be asked regarding futures and options and share trading. Your opinion about the recent jump in the stock market. So be prepared for those questions. Then, if you have work experience, then you could be asked, why do you want to leave your previous job? Uh, how will your work experience be useful while working as an SBI PO? Why did you join the job in the first place? Why didn't you wait for a selection in a public sector bank, etc.? So you should always say whatever you learned in your previous job will be useful as an SBI PO. You can talk about soft skills, interacting with customers, communication skills, patience. These are qualities that you developed in your previous job, and these will be useful while working as an SBI PO. You could be asked questions on hobbies and achievements. Your biodata form is an important source of questions. So fill your biodata form carefully after a lot of thought. Don't lie on your biodata form. You will be asked questions, probably, not will be, but you will probably be asked questions on your hobbies and achievements mentioned in your biodata form. So make sure that you prepare well for this. So if you're interested in cricket or some other sport, you could be asked questions related to it. So be prepared. I'll cover this in detail in mock interviews. So that would be sort of a case to case basis. I'll ask you questions suited for your profile. Moving on. So we discussed a few personal questions and answers. You could be asked questions on banking. So, questions on the union budget, basic banking terms. What is repo rate? What is CRR? What is SLR? One liners, two liners, that's it. Then, current events related to banking, bank mergers. What do you think about the merger of the associate banks in the State Bank of India? What do you think about the merger of the smaller banks in bigger banks, in Bank of Baroda, Punjab National Bank, etc.? Or what do you think about privatization? Then situation based questions. So suppose you're working as an officer in the State Bank of India and an angry customer walks into the branch. How will you deal with such a customer? Suppose a customer applies for a loan. Which documents will you ask from the customer? Uh, Suppose you're working as an officer and you have to sell mutual funds and insurance to your customers. What strategy will you follow? So these are situation based questions. Then detailed banking questions, core technical questions, but you'll have to answer in detail. For example, what are the problems? This was a question asked to me in 2000, I think 13 or 14, my last SBI interview. What are the challenges facing the banking sector? How should banks deal with the problem of NPAs? So I had to answer in detail. So these are detailed sort of questions. The questions are not detailed, the answer should be detailed. Pratik, you can say you pursue it as a hobby. You don't pursue chess professionally, it's just a hobby. So you're not aware of the recent developments, you don't know all the technicalities, it's just a hobby. If you say like this, I think they'll be satisfied. It's acceptable. I was asked a few questions on cricket when I mentioned I like watching cricket and playing cricket. But then I said, these are old incidents. These happened with me. My last bank interview was in 2014. But these are very common questions. So through all these years, I always interact with the students after their interview process is over. I sort of note down all the questions. And what I've realized is most of the personal questions are the same. They've remained the same through these years. So anyway, I was asked about cricket and I did not know about it. Some technical details, who hit the first century, something like that. So I said, no, sir, I pursue it as a hobby. I enjoy watching cricket. I don't want to get into the technicalities because that sort of takes the fun out of it. You watch a sport to enjoy it at leisure. Whenever I'm free, I watch cricket matches, and almost everyone has played cricket in his or her, mostly boys, in during their school years, during their teenage years, during their college days. So it's a hobby. It's something that I don't pursue professionally, and I don't want to do it because then it sort of takes the fun out of it. So you're doing it to enjoy it because you enjoy it. You're not, if you try to gather all the knowledge regarding cricket and the statistics, it tends to get it tends to get boring. So I explained it this way and they were satisfied. I don't think it's a big deal. Anyway, so basic banking terms, current events related to banking, situation-based questions, detailed banking questions, and then union budget, of course. So mostly this covers the banking part. Then general knowledge and current affairs. Prepare very well the farm laws, the names of the laws, the provisions, why the farmers are protesting, the government side of the government's view of it, why the government says the farm laws are good, why are the farmers opposing the farm laws. So you need to prepare well. You should be able to talk at least for 2 minutes on this. You won't be allowed to talk, generally speaking, for more than 1 minute. But if you are aware of all the aspects and if you start the answer confidently, I'm sure you will benefit. So then farmer suicides. Why are farmers committing suicides? What are the problems faced by farmers? Then rising fuel prices, questions on social media, privacy, freedom of speech, the recent Disha Ravi case, the toolkit case. So all about this. And then finally, COVID-19 lockdown related questions. How did the lockdown affect the banks? How did it affect the NPAs? What should the banks do to come out of this uh, difficulty? How did COVID affect the economy of the country? How did COVID affect the world economy? Why did the share market rise during this period? So, generally speaking, these are questions on general knowledge and current affairs. Not necessarily, Akshay. I mean, it's frankly, it's not possible. Banks offer many services. But generally speaking, if someone applies for a loan, you'll check his or her CIBIL, then identity proof. Uh, Maybe you'll take some sort of security. I mean, just the general things. That's it. Graduation in mechanical engineering. Mayur, I've already answered that question. You can go back a few minutes and check out the answer. I think someone else asked the same question. You are a mechanical engineer, so how will you use the knowledge of mechanical engineering while working in the bank? Anyway, moving on. So that's it. This brings us to the end of our session. We have a special interview batch for bank exams. You should download the iPratham app, click on the interview batch, pay the fees, and start attending the interview sessions. Some of the sessions will be general sessions, but most of the sessions would be one-to-one. These sessions will be conducted on Zoom, one-to-one mock interview sessions. Those won't be common general sessions. I'll be, first of all, I'll talk to you. We'll discuss your profile. There would be sort of a detailed profile analysis, and based on that, I would give you a list of questions. So these are the questions you can expect in the interview. Then I'll give you some answers. We'll discuss the answers. After this is over, then we'll start with the mock interviews. So I won't immediately start with the mock interviews. I'll first analyze your profile. There'll be profile analysis. Then I'll give you a set of questions. We'll discuss the answers, and then the mock interviews will start. Meanwhile, I'll also be conducting some general sessions on the app. Okay, so that's it, guys. Thank you very much for attending. If you have any questions, please write in the comment section. I'll be back again, maybe after a couple of days, with another session. I think there's a session on IBPS PO interviews tomorrow, more or less similar to this session, except that usually the SBI PO interviews last longer. So the duration is about 10 to 15 minutes for SBI PO. Whereas for IBPS PO, it's the same. But what I've seen from experience, my own experience, I cleared IBPS PO interviews as well multiple times. and from the experience of other students, uh, usually the IBPS PO interview would be for 8 to 10 minutes, 10 minutes, 10 12 minutes max. Whereas the SBI PO interview tends to last longer, around 15 minutes. That's not always the case, but generally speaking. Weekend wives, you'll have to wait for the offline coaching to restart. For now, we're following the online mode. Akshay, the batch has already started. You can enroll by downloading the iPratham app. So anyway, guys, thank you very much. And by the way, the batch is free for all ILEARN and Sankalp Education students. So ILEARN Center students, Sankalp Education students who have cleared bank interviews don't need to pay anything. Just send me all your information on WhatsApp. You can give the relevant information in the office as well, and you'll get the link with your ID and password on your mobile number. That's it. So if you have any questions, you can ask. Else, I'll end the session. That's my WhatsApp number. If you have any questions, not general questions, but very specific questions related to your profile for SBI PO, IBPS PO, you can always WhatsApp me. Please don't call me. I'm usually busy in mock interviews, online mock interviews throughout the day, and I won't be able to receive your calls. But you can WhatsApp me, and I'll be more than happy to clarify your doubts. That's it. Thank you very much. See you soon. Till then, Jai Hind, Jai Maharashtra.